Methods and constructors. Some methods are procedural in the sense that they do not return any values, but may store information, make a calculation, or are needed to display a common framework, such as a calendar format. Although these types of methods won't return information, they can print and/or alter it. Two types of procedural methods are constructors and modifiers, sometimes called mutator methods. We have discussed how a class defines attributes and behaviors of an object, but an object must be built in order to be used as such. Constructors create the object of the class. These methods provide you another way to declare and initialize objects. You will recognize them easily because they will have the same name as your class. So in our class age, our constructor will be public age with parentheses. A constructor method can be used throughout your program to declare new identifiers that will store information. Constructors are always public. If no constructor is written, Java gives it a Noargs constructor, which has no arguments, and is usually where standard information about the object is stored prior to an instance being declared. The instance variables are set to default values. They can also have arguments which provide a way to bring in or pass in data, store and manipulate it versus using several set methods. So here, a class can have multiple constructors with as many parameters as needed. However, there cannot be any two constructors with the exact same number of arguments. As you saw on the previous slide, a constructor can have no arguments, one argument, or many arguments. We included previously an example of one argument that was a string type. It is possible to pass an object as a parameter into a constructor. When a mutable object, such as key X, here in our example, is a constructor parameter, the object K in class music is a copy of the object passed into the constructor. In this way, the instance variable is not an alias of the original object, and methods are prevented from modifying the state of the original object. All methods, not just constructors, can share the same name. In fact, any two or more methods within the same class that share a name are called overloaded methods. As seen below, overloaded methods must have a different number and/or type of parameter, as with constructors, in order to avoid ambiguity when being invoked. So here, this constructor method for some takes in two doubles, and this one takes in two ints. So if someone is invoking this method and the parameters that they're sending are doubles, the computer will know to run this method instead of this method. You may wonder how, when you overload methods, Java knows which method to use. Simple. It looks to see what kind and number of parameters you're sending, then looks for the method that is expecting those parameters. For example, if you execute this code, Java will look for a method with this declaration. So since we have a double here and a double there, it will look for a method called sum that accepts two doubles. In the next section, we're going to see how this works with our main method. Note: when sending arguments to a method's parameters, the order in which they're listed is very important. Values provided in the argument list need to correspond to the order and type in the method signature. Also, if you use a null reference to call a method or access an instance variable, a null pointer exception will be thrown. Let's say we want to create a program that will store multiple bank accounts and their balances. We will start by creating a bank account class in our IDE and declaring an identifier for the name of the account and one for the balance of the account. So we have public class bank account, private string name, and private double balance. Name and balance will be initialized within the methods, but for now they will default to null and 0. Next, we need to create a constructor method that will hold the various accounts we want to store. Remember, it must have the same name as the class. So we have public bank account. and it's going to take two parameters, string account name and double account amount. Since account name and account amount are locally declared within this method, they cannot be used anywhere else. So we need to store those values in name and balance, which were declared above this method. So we're going to say name equals account name. So we're going to store whatever is sent to this method in this variable here, and we're going to store whatever is there in double balance. Now that we have created a method to store our accounts, we must create some accounts. Start a new Java file with the class bank, or something more creative, and have it create 3 accounts. So in our main method here, the following store data in each variable A, B, and C. So we're going to have bank account A, bank account B, and bank account C. We set those equal to new bank account, and then we send our 2 parameters, the string name and the double balance. Before we declared new objects, then invoked methods to store data in their private variables. Using a constructor, we can now assign and store any number of values that are attributes of it. Did you notice how this is a new way of creating objects? Previously, we would have written something like this, using accessor methods. Bank account A equals new bank account, A.setName Maria, A.setBalance 500.0. But using constructors, we can do this in one step. Bank account A equals new bank account Maria 500.0. Before we proceed, let's go back and make one change to our program just to see what happens. In the declaration of your main method in your bank class, delete Stringargs so that the method takes no parameters. Now run your program. You get an error, right? When Java tries to start a program, it looks for a main method in the driver class. That method is its starting point, its front door, for the whole program. But more specifically, it's looking for a main method that takes exactly one parameter, an array of string objects. When you deleted Stringargs, you made a different method. Java couldn't find the front door, and you got an error. What would happen if you overload main and use both versions, one with the parameter, one without? Try it and see. So what is Stringargs for? Well, we've been typing this parameter all this time and never using it. You may wonder why. We use our IDE to run Java programs, but they can also be run from a command line. That might look like this. It's just a way of passing data into our program when it starts up. Anything else we add to the line gets sent to the main method as an array of strings. So if we type this in, we can then use those parameters in our program. So we have public static void main, system error println args3. So we have our array of strings right here. We're looking at the index value of 3, so that is hello. So this would output a string hello.